If you've had a less than desirable start to the year, or maybe you feel like you've actually been super busy and you haven't had any time to actually work on the important things that are going to move your business forward, then I want you to consider whether maybe you need a little bit of support or accountability. When you surround yourself with the right people that are lifting you up, challenging you, calling you forward to be the best version of yourself, you're more likely to not only just take action, but to take massive aligned action. This is what could be possible when you join a mastermind. But yet my masterminds are a little bit different. My masterminds are a blend of one-on-one coaching, a program designed to help support the next level of growth within your business, as well as a mastermind where you get group coaching, accountability, support, and the mindset shifts and breakthroughs that you need in order to take your business to the next level. Whether you're working towards 10K months or whether you're ready to scale beyond 6 figures, I have 2 masterminds opening the doors this week to support you in leveling up for the next 4 to 6 months. If you've ever gotten value out of the podcast that I share, then you know how valuable mindset work can be. In both masterminds, we dive deep into any mindset blocks, fears, doubts, and anything that could be holding you back, and we level up the strategy and the structure of your business in order for you to have more freedom, profit, and impact. It's time to check out either mastermind, whether it's Elevate Mastermind if you're working towards 10K months, or if it is Next Level Mastermind where you need that next level support to start scaling your business. Check out the links in the show notes and come and join us for the next round. Welcome to the Next Level Life podcast with Christine Corcoran. This podcast is made for the powerhouse businesswomen who are ready to ignite their fullest potential. This is where we will dive deep into the mindset breakthroughs and sprinkle in some kick up the butt motivation so you can scale your business with confidence and clarity. Whether you're craving more income, impact, or inspiration, this podcast will be your ultimate resource for all things next level. Listen in as we have authentic conversations with game-changing female entrepreneurs as we reveal the secrets on what it takes to rise and thrive. So go ahead, ignite your inner fire, and let's get you taking massive aligned action. Are you ready to elevate? Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited for you to be a part of our conversation today. I've invited the beautiful Amy Christopherson from AMYJANE HR to come and talk to us with what it means to be a leader who leads with kindness and the key things you need to have in place when it comes to hiring your next person in your business. Whether you are just thinking about hiring or whether you have team in place, this episode is going to help you think about your employees in a different way. It's also going to help you to consider some of the things you might need to have in place from a HR perspective that will support the growth and expansion of your business, as well as building a better culture within your team. And if you think you don't need to consider culture when you've only got 1 or 2 team members, think again. It is really important. Otherwise, you are going to not have much retention with your team members and you're going to have to hire again and again and again. So leadership, HR, kindness, and leading with love, this is all for you. Let me introduce you to Amy Christopherson, who is a people-focused, future-driven expert in the HR space. Through leadership, expert advice, and best practice, Amy can take your HR from complex, burdensome, and overwhelming to be a compliant, proactive, and strategic part of your business. Qualified with a Bachelor of Business, HR, and IR, and registered with the Australian Human Resources Institute, Amy has worked in the HR field for many years across so many industries and is dedicated to working with Australian businesses to maximise the potential of your most important asset, your people. She thrives on building positive workplaces where people love to work and where business owners have peace of mind that they are being supported with any HR challenge. Let's dive into today's podcast. Today on the podcast, I've invited the beautiful Amy from Amy HR to talk all about HR and making sure that you're creating a beautiful culture with your team. So thank you so much for joining me today, Amy.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Me too. I'm so excited for this conversation because I feel like HR is one of those things that people put off for so long, and it's often one of the things that they should have done earlier. And then what often happens, right, is they have all these problems that show up and then they're like, oh my God, I need help with this. Who can help me? So I'd love to just start there. I'd love for you just to dive straight in for me, and then I'll get you to share a little bit more about your business journey. So what are some of the problems that you see that people come to you with right from the get-go?
Yeah, absolutely. And they always leave HR till way too late because they went into business because they love what they do and what they specialize in, and they're super passionate about it. And then they forget that they actually have to manage the people that work inside the business. And then there's, issues pop up and bits and pieces. And then it's just like becomes way too overwhelming for them or they just don't know the right path to go down. So quite often they're coming to me kind of at 2 stages of business. So quite often it's at the beginning stage where they're hiring their first employee and they want to do it right from the beginning. and we do up some contracts and all of those kind of things. And then the other side, the flip side of the coin, is the people who've got a team of say 10 to 15, and then they're like, oh, I can't manage all these people anymore. How can you help me? Like, I don't even know whether I'm doing this right. So it's definitely those two polar opposites of stages of business where certain business owners find that they've reached their limit with their leadership and their ability to deliver the HR well.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? And I think that it's all, you're right, like it's almost like they don't realize that they have to actually manage humans, and so much has changed, I guess, in the workspace over many years. In the last 10 to 20 years, a lot has changed. And I'm finding, like, even the conversations that I'm having with leaders, like there's still the old school mentality, and they're kind of still trying to manage people with the old school mentality and not really evolving into the new way of really managing people. Are you finding that as well?
Absolutely, yeah. That I feel like there's been a change in power, if you want to use that word. I don't necessarily like that word, but there's been a shift, and it's moved away from the employer being the one who drives the conversation to the employee being the one who's driving the conversation, because we're in a tight market in a lot of industries, and you want to attract the best talent. So to be able to do that, you need to do the HR things well. You need to create a really good culture. You need to create a place where people really want to work, where they're aligned to your vision. They're on the road with you. And the only way to do that is to have really open communication. Realize that your website isn't just selling to your client, your website is selling to your people as well. Like, there's so many ways to communicate what you're about, and that it's not just clients that you need to attract, it's people as well.
Yeah, 100%. You're so right. It has a complete shift in power. You're so right. Like, it used to be like the older generation, like so grateful and happy to have a job that they're just happy to work for someone. Whereas now people are like, well, actually, I don't feel aligned to that culture. I don't feel aligned to the values of the business owner. I don't like what that company's doing with regards to their manufacturing. Like, they're really looking beyond not just getting a job, right? They're really wanting to find somewhere that they belong. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many conversations and data out there now that is saying that, employers still think that money is the most important thing to a person. And employees, the results are saying that the very opposite. They
Right.
want to be seen as a human. Like, you're not just a person who's there for 8 hours, you're a whole person who has pressures outside of work, who has a family, who has to do drop-offs and pickups, who has elderly parents that need to be looked after, and all of those combination of things. And it's the organizations who see those people as whole people. They're the ones who are moving forward in leaps and bounds.
Love that. So good. And so tell me, and this is not just for like big organizations, right? I think we need to like caveat this, that if you're a business owner listening to this and you have one or two team, this also relates to you. So are you noticing, even with the smaller teams, that they're being, like, even just the way that they're hiring is changing?
Absolutely. I think hiring it was we hired for skill. We always hired for skill and based on whatever qualifications a person held. But so much so now we're moving towards hiring for those personal attributes, because a lot of skills can be taught. So you really want a person whose values align with your values of your organization, that are aligned with the way you work with your clients, the way you communicate, the way your culture is, and what you value, and all of those things all roll in. And it's the alignment between the person and the business that is so much more important, because you can teach them your way of working. You've built a business that is amazing because of the way you do things. You can teach them that. But
Yeah.
bring a person in that you're going to work really well with, that you vibe with, that you really enjoy being around for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know, you're spending more time with the people at work than you are with your family sometimes. So it's really important that, especially as a business owner, that you're working with people that you love being around.
I love that. I love that you consider it from that perspective. Often it's not something I've ever heard before, like actually hire based on the person and whether you like them or not. How funny. So tell us, how did you get to this stage? So tell us a little bit about your journey and what you do now and who you help.
Yeah, it's a really funny journey I've been on. Back in school, I was in scouting movement, and I actually did a research project that was like looking at what jobs you might want to do when you're older. And HR was one of the things that popped out to me. I went then straight from school into doing a business degree, and I did HR straight out. I got approached wanting to do things like statistics and all those kind of things because I was good at it, but I didn't enjoy it. So I definitely enjoyed the people stuff. So I worked in HR for a while, did recruitment, not my favorite thing. I don't love it. So that was my evolution. I worked through the to a generalist role, took a little mini career break and career change when I had kids. And then I've come back with so much gusto and passion about doing HR differently, not being about the fluff, make it about, action and impact and all of those kind of things that are so important, because small businesses, so many of them fail in the first 5 years. And if only they knew how to do HR better, it can really contribute to the success of their business.
Yeah, absolutely. So what part of what you do now do you love the most?
I love working with my ongoing clients the most. So I work on a retainer basis with varying industries and size businesses, but I really get to invest in them. I really get to be involved in their growth and work towards their overall mission and goals. And it's always changing. It's never the same. That's probably the part that I love the most. And I get to make huge change. I just recently employed an EA for 2 directors who had not had any direct support, and now the impact that I'm seeing having that person in the business is just life changing for them. It's taking so much pressure off them in their personal lives because they're not having to do all the admin stuff anymore. They've got that support all the time. So it's those impacts and changes that I really love doing.
And was that something that they hadn't considered, that they were just trying to do all things themselves and they didn't even think to hire in that space?
I think so. They had admin support on a kind of part-time basis, but I think moving to a full-time person, it was a conversation. I was like, you're not reaching your goals, your personal goals. Like, one of the partners in that business wanted to take a little bit of a step away and follow their passions, and not having that support within the business is something that was really impeding her being able to do that. So I feel like having those conversations, and I meet with all my clients on a monthly basis to find out what's going on, where are we heading next? What are we working on? All of those kind of things. And during those conversations, you have so many light bulb moments of like, oh my God, we just need to do that bit now, and yeah, it's so rewarding to see them taking on the things I've said and really making a change.
Yeah, love it. So good. So let's go back a little bit. When's the best time to be bringing HR support into a business?
I have this conversation with so many people, and I would love every small business to have access to HR support when they're hiring their first team member, because it will enable them to protect their business and create contracts that are actually for them, not just for the employee. It sets them up really well for future to protect their IP and all of those kind of things, and create a really open and transparent relationship between the employer and the employee. But it also creates a roadmap. I guess having those conversations early on really allows me to outline to them what the best steps are for them. We do the contracts, and then we work through and do the policies and procedures, and that allows you to onboard your employees really, really effectively, which creates an amazing employee experience. So I think I would love every small business to have that support in the beginning. I understand there's cost associated with that, and sometimes they don't see the value, or they just look at HR like, oh, it's way too expensive. We'll never be able to have a person. And I had, conversations on the weekly that, HR support doesn't have to be super, super expensive. It's an investment, but it doesn't have to, it's not going to break you. And the clarity you can receive for a few $100s is probably going to really drive and support your passion to move forward.
Love that. Because you're right. Like, I think that we've also got to come into the new reality that you don't have to necessarily hire a HR person in-house, right? Like, that might be for a bigger organization. I think the small businesses don't know that what your service is available, right? They don't know it exists, that you're a virtual HR person. So it's not something that you need to be, in-house and hire you for the full year, right? Like, it's actually that ongoing support that you can do on a regular basis, but at a actual affordable cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Like an in-house HR full-time person is like $85,000 or $90,000 a year.
Probably
A small
100
business
now.
or 100, depends on your location, but it's just not affordable. But having a part-time resource that that you can access whenever anything goes wrong, you can give them a phone call, you can talk to the same person every time, you can get really qualified, best practice advice. It just takes so much, it gives them so much calm, it takes away that overwhelm. I love answering those phone calls from my clients. I'm a generator in human design, and I love to respond to whatever challenge is thrown at me. So I really, really thrive off finding the answer and finding the right solution.
And best to go to someone who actually has the level of qualifications that you have, rather than jumping into a Facebook group and going, oh my God, I've had this team member do this. What's the next? What should I do? Like, the amount of posts that I see in Facebook groups literally asking for advice around team management or HR is absolutely ridiculous. Like, why would you go there for advice for that type of thing? Like, you could set yourself up to really have some problems. So, like, what are some of the things that you see HR mitigating? Like, what problems do you see HR helps to mitigate?
Oh, I see it mitigating things like turnover and people leaving, and then making claims back on the business. The unfair dismissal rules are very, very complex. So managing that process really well can save you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
HR helps you create a great culture in your business, and I'm all about the culture warrior in a business. So you want to have those people who are really living your culture, your mission, your vision, all of those kind of things. So we can help. You kind of put your new people with that person, and then they kind of absorb the ways of working in your business. So those kind of things really can assist in the growth of your business long term, to create that feeling that you want your clients to have in the business. Also, policies and procedures, they sound really, really boring, and I don't enjoy doing them for my own business, but they're really, really important for all businesses to have, a way of working. And you need to make sure that they're fully reflective of who you are and what you do. And that creates that consistency across all of your employees. So everybody gets the same piece of information. They don't have to come and ask you the 1,000 questions, the same question over and over and over, because it's all there. It's all there for them to access.
Yeah. I'm a big believer of, like, over communicating. And one of the things I often teach clients that I have that have businesses, and I've managed people in the past as well, and I'm obviously having an understanding of human behavior, I often see things like, I see the underlying reason why an employee might be having some problems. And so I am such a big believer of making sure that you're communicating with absolute certainty. And I know that you often talk about this with regards to, like, kindness and politeness, because if your employees don't know what's expected of them, you cannot expect them to do a great job in the way that you want them to do a great job, or to think like you and act or make decisions like you. And a lot of the time, business owners are hoping, wishing, and praying instead of communicating, right? So what's one of the things that you always like to share with your people that are, like, having that challenge, or how you onboard that onboard the employee really well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important to be able to communicate to your employees even in the hard times, because sometimes having a hard conversation, it's probably one of the things I coach my clients on the most, is the best way to communicate, either via writing or in person, and the things that they need to say, because sometimes they would really rather push it under the rug and think that it might resolve it itself. And I think that making sure that you're looking at that whole person, that you're delivering whatever communication you need to do with kindness is super, super important. One of the people that I follow, Adam Grant, he is an amazing, amazing thinker. And I recently went to one of his seminars, and he said that one of the best things you can do is, one, show that you can take feedback on and that you action it, but also show that you can deliver it to your people with kindness and the promise that you know that they can deliver. So you need to show them that you believe in them, that they can do the things that you're asking them to do, even if it feels challenging in the moment.
That's it. Stop micromanaging. Give them the opportunity to prove to you that they can do it. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love that focus for people. And I think as well, like, recognizing as well, like, those conversations in those hard times, they can be a make or break of a relationship. And I feel like the people who have the courage to put their own emotions aside, to process their own emotions at the stress or whatever the situation is, they take the time to actually just regulate themselves and then go, okay, how can we communicate this? It's actually going to be beneficial to keep the relationship intact rather than it be a destroyer. Because I can remember even being back in corporate, there were certain conversations or situations that were handled so badly that I'm like, that's the reason why I left. Like, it was like not one specific one, but it was 3 or 4 little ones that I was like an indicator of like, nah, I'm out, I'm done. You're right. Like, you can see that either you weren't valued, or you can see that they didn't really take your perspective into consideration. They didn't take the time to communicate the changes. Like, one of the biggest things I see as well, right, is that change when you go and make a change in the business. And if you don't communicate to your team why you're making that change, you cannot expect them to get on board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I communicate to my clients, when you're making a major change in your business, you need to have buy-in before you make the change. You can't just communicate the change to them all of a sudden things are changing. We're doing something differently. You need to make sure that you're preempting it and having those open conversations about why we're doing what we're doing, and where we're going, and what the long-term goal is, and how it's pushing us towards our vision, and all of those kind of things. Over communicate to them, because they feel ready to ask you questions as well during the process, and it might make you think about something that you hadn't thought of through the process.
Yeah, like, how many times, like, if your team members are on the floor dealing with customers, they may have some incredible ideas that if you don't take the time to actually uncover and allow them to actually share that, you're missing out, right? Like, you can't see absolutely everything.
No, absolutely. So we all ask for testimonials from our clients. Why are we not asking that from our employees? Why are we not doing exit interviews? Why are we not having that conversation as to why the person has chosen to leave? It might be completely personal, but there might be like little nuggets of things you can change in your organization that's going to reduce the amount of people leaving later.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my goodness. And I think sometimes, like, there is a fear of conflict, or a fear of, like, you're right, what you were saying before, like, if you're not able to actually receive the criticism or feedback. So what's some of the advice that you would give for business owners when it comes to receiving feedback or criticism?
I think you need to take the time to process it, because sometimes it can hit you in the heart, and because you're so invested in your business, it feels like an attack on your business. And it may feel like an attack on you personally as a leader as well. So sometimes I think it's really important to not respond instantly. I think you need to sit with it for a little while, because no one expects you to respond instantly. And I've had to learn that over my business journey, that when I receive feedback which I never used to receive really, really well, I've had to learn how to sit with that better, and how I can then turn it into a growth a growth path for me from what I've been told. So I think sitting with it before you respond is really, really important. But I then think openly communicating how you've received that and how it made you feel and how you think you can change is really important as well. So many leaders don't actually, say or show that they can receive feedback. There's so many people who, I'm the leader, I've done my time, I'm here, and they think their role is certain, always certain. But not everybody develops really good leadership skills, really, through their journey. And sometimes you become a leader before you're ready. So I think all those pieces of feedback are really, really important to guide you to be a good leader, and receive that feedback in a really, gentle way. I guess you got to be able to be gentle with yourself and realize you're only one person, but it's about how you behave afterwards that's really important.
Love that. So it's like showing vulnerability as a leader, so then people can still feel connected to you, and that it's a two-way street. It's not just like, otherwise it's almost like you're giving feedback to a cold, like,
Absolutely. It just, showing that you can receive feedback in the right way and in the right context, I think it will make you seem more human to your people, that you're just like them. You need to show them that you're just like them. None of us, we're in organizations where quite often it was very hierarchical, and very much it's flattened out over time. So I think it's very, very important for all of us to realize that no matter what position you're in an organization, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We interact with so many people across that day, and that it's how you communicate with those people that is really perceived over time.
Right, that long-term relationship and having that focus for them so that they feel a part of something. Because if you actually take on board someone's feedback and implement it, do you know how validated they feel? Like, they feel so validated. They're going to be much more invested in the growth of your business because you're allowing them to be a part of it and be involved, right? Like, that's obviously going to help with culture.
Absolutely. They become more invested in your business when they've been a part of how it's being built. There's so many conversations I have around the newer people getting squashed in the organization or not feeling like they have the ability to put their views forward. And I think that creating an environment where everyone's views and everyone gets a turn is so important, especially if you're looking at major change in the business or transitions, or you need a new innovative idea. It's so important for a leader to stay silent some of the time and really listen to what other people are saying so that they can, really get good ideas. The newest person could be the person who has the best ideas because they're coming from an outside perspective.
Right. And they may have had other experiences that you've never had, and they might bring something in that can change the game. Right. Like, I love that. Love that. And I think as well, like, I like to consider the concept of, like, when people are invested, they're more likely to support the growth of the business too. So they're going to come to you with ideas to support the growth. But also, like, when it comes to you receiving that feedback, I always like to come back from the perspective of what are the facts and what are emotions. Because, like you said, when it is our business, we're so invested emotionally that it can be really hard to receive that feedback or criticism. But and sometimes it depends on the situation. Like, if it is a heightened situation, then maybe the employee is also sharing the feedback from an emotional space, right? Which is really hard to navigate. And I think that's why it's so key that you get the support to be able to have, like, someone else that's completely outside of the situation to be like, okay, what are the facts? What do we know? What can we work on in order to improve this? Because otherwise your emotions might cloud, and then you're responding to the employee's emotions, and that's just an emotional storm, right? Rather than actually going, well, hang on a minute, there's really legitimate feedback in that. Like, let's actually take that feedback on. Like, I actually had this recently with a client, and she had some negative feedback, and I was like, okay, I know it's hard to take, and I want you just to take the day. And I said exactly what you were saying before, like, just take the time to process your emotions. Just sit with it. Just be okay with just sitting with it. You do not have to respond immediately. And she sat with it for the day. The next day we came back and was like, okay, what's the actual facts here? What do we know? And how can this be beneficial for the business? What can we take from it? And you also don't have to take it all, right? Like you don't have to take all of it, because at the end of the day, you're the business owner. You get to choose what you want to take on board and what changes you want to implement.
Absolutely. And there could have been circumstances in their life, in your life. We're all human as well. As a service provider, there are things that are going to impact us and the way that we deliver over time. And that's because we're all human. We've all got stuff going on in the background that nobody probably inside of your business always knows about. So I think you need to sit with that for a moment and realize the other person's human as well. They might be going through something. So that's where they're delivering from an emotional point of view. So that's when it's really important. I find that me being involved in my clients' businesses in that way, I'm like that gel, I guess, or the clarity that they need to draw that back, pull the emotion out, because I'm invested in their business, but I'm not emotionally invested in their business. So I can provide, that separation, I guess, between the facts and what we deliver, and how we can move forward, and it's like, the sun rising, and you create that clarity, I guess, of moving forward.
100%. It's invaluable, absolutely invaluable. Because like it can feel like sometimes when you get that negative feedback or have a terrible situation with an employee, whatever they're doing that could be negatively impacting the business, and it can feel like the end of the world. Like it can feel like the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and you take it so personally, and you take it to be a personal attack and a business attack, and having someone come in and go, well, actually, it's not that. Let's look at it from this perspective. And then you're like, oh, right? It can
Absolutely.
change the whole way that you respond.
Oh, absolutely. We've all worked under bosses who have not communicated well in the past. I had a really terrible work situation that I went through, and being in HR, you would think we would avoid those kind of things, but it doesn't happen. We still have bad situations as well. And I think that the business I've now created has fueled me from it was probably 15 years ago or more, has fueled the way that I work now. It took me a long time to process that, but I realize now when I look back that the things that I do now and the way that I am probably all come from living through that situation and knowing that I was never going to be like that person.
Yeah.
I was never going to live bitter, or because I was provided bad feedback, I was going to take feedback with grace and work out how to move forward or why the situation arose. And I think having that clarity then, allows me to do that for my clients as well, because I'm always coming from a people focus, and that every person is their own person. But there's ways that we can move forward, that no matter what the feedback is, whether it's good or bad, usually the bad is where you grow. You can't grow usually from good feedback. It's the yucky stuff that you need to implement and change and evolve and all of those things.
And it's sometimes like you need to have a really hard look at yourself, right? Like I've been leaders of teams of 20, and I've had challenging times like that before, where I've been accused of bullying once, right? And I'm like, what? Like it made absolutely no sense to me. I was like, at what point, like what even is that? Like I don't even have no concept of what I could have possibly have done to create that. And it was a freaking hard, challenging situation, but it was a really good hard look at myself to be like, okay, so how am I presenting myself in the workspace, right? Even though I might be stressed or I might be focused on certain things to grow the business, that's not the employee's fault. Like that's not the employees. They don't have to, they shouldn't have to deal with that. I need to be showing up in the way that is going to support them to have their fullest potential. And so it was a really beautiful way of going, well, hang on a minute, I'm not leading the way that I would like to lead. And it's time to actually change some of the ways that I go about things. And even though it was extremely hard, you're right, it was that growth opportunity to be like, oh, hang on a minute, I could be doing things differently, and making those changes and then seeing the impact that that had. I was like, holy hell, I did not even know I was showing up sometimes to work super stressed. And I've obviously come so far. This is like probably 20 years ago, but like I remember literally like going, I was showing all of that stress in my responses, in my reactions, in the way that I was presenting myself in the workspace. And probably from a place of like almost like I wanted other people to see how stressed I was. But that's not the employee's fault. They should never have to care about your business as much as you do. You need to consider your business, your clients, your employees as real people, like you said, as a whole person with all different parts of life experience, and see them as a human and work with them to support them. And I think that it's a beautiful way to look at that leadership piece. So I'd love to know, what is something that you would love leaders to know or business owners to know when it comes to building that culture?
I think that they need to start with themselves. Are you doing the things that you want your employees to do? Are you demonstrating the things or the cultural values of your business? Are you doing it on the daily? It's not something that we do and then it's done, we communicate it and it's over. It's something you need to live every day. You need to be behaving in the right way. You need to be communicating in the right way. You need to be involving your employees in the right way. And a lot of the time you need to over communicate what those things are. So that they become ingrained in you and in them. So I think that whatever decision you make with regard to people within your organization, you need to be doing it first. You need to
100%.
be embodying that to be able to then expect anyone else to take that on.
Love it. And I think you also talk a lot about like sharing your vision and values. Yeah. So that's obviously key when it comes to culture. I'm a big believer in that too. Like often, like in the old days, like before the 2000s, like it was almost like you didn't tell the employees what the goals were for the business, but now you should, right?
Absolutely, all the time. It should be part of. Quite often, I see businesses that share it. So share how have you delivered on one of our values this week? You know, a quick share around the circle, because it makes people think about it on the weekly.
Love
Because
it.
they're always, you know, what have I done this week that means that I've been empathetic to somebody, or whatever the value is. You know, how have I shown that? How have I made impact this week with one of our clients? You know, it's the little things, like you've always taught us that you know, you always share the little things, because it's the little wins along the way that impact on the big things. And doing things like that can really have an impact on how people embody that, and that they're always thinking about it, that it
I love
doesn't get
that.
pushed all the way to the back.
I love that. That's so good. Oh, awesome. And I'd love to know, as last little kind of question around HR, is if someone was wanting to take their business to the next level, what would you suggest would be their next best step?
I think if they haven't had HR support, they don't know what the experience is like. And I think that doing a bit of a reset is always a good step. So where it sounds, HR audit sounds yucky, but it's really important to really work through all of the key points inside your business to work out, one, whether you're compliant with the minimum requirements. Are you keeping records for the amount of time that you're supposed to be? Are we following some good practice procedures and policies and all of those kind of things? So I think doing an audit of where you're at really will help move you forward to where you need to go and what changes you need to make. And a lot of the time, the indicators that come out of a HR audit are something you're going to work on for 12 to 18 months. They're not something we need to do right now. It's something we need to, you know, obviously there's the high risk things that need to be done right now, but it'll lead on to a lot of change and growth within your people management to, you know, make you an employer of choice.
Love that. And so important to do right from before you start scaling, before you start taking it to the next level, right? Because if the foundations aren't set in place, you could be setting yourself up for some major dramas down the track.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So having goals within, so you have your overall business goals, but having HR goals, because is going to really lead you towards, you know, planning your recruitment better. It's not going to be reactive. It's going to be proactive, because you know that you're going to need a new person in August. You know, it's all of those kind of things that are really it's going to make your processes so much calmer, because you know what's next.
Love
Mm.
that. So good, right? You know me, I'm always about future planning, like plan it out, make a plan and work towards it. And it'll often happen sooner than you expect.
Like how
Absolutely.
many times I've had this conversation with business owners where it's like, yeah, let's plan out like what stage of growth are you going to hire and where are you going to hire and what do you need? Like who do you need on your team? And often like just planning that out and they go, oh yeah, probably 6 months, maybe 12. And then before you know it, it's like 3, 4 months and they're like, oh God, I've got to hire now, right? It's that intention that you're putting out to the universe, but also your intention in how you're going to grow and scale the business. And team is a huge part of that, no matter what type of business you run.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so, so important to plan where you're going and how you're going to get there. And, what do you need to have done in the background that's going to support a really clean process for that to happen? So, do you need to write more job descriptions? Do you need to create new roles? Do other roles need to change to be able to bring that person in? Do we need to redesign how we're doing things? There's so many conversations that you can have in advance before you hit go on a job advert,
Yes.
that's really going to provide you with the clarity that you need to be able to um, do it effectively, hire the right person, and hopefully, really impact the growth of your business.
Yeah, love it. Oh my God, so good. Thank you so much for sharing. It's just been amazing. So, for listeners, you may not have met Amy, but I've known Amy for quite a while now. I got to meet the beautiful Amy at a retreat that I was speaking at last year, and then Amy came in as a part of my beautiful Elevate Mastermind for 2 rounds. So, I'd love it if you wouldn't mind if you could share a little bit about your experience within the Elevate Mastermind. So, firstly, what called you to be a part of it in the first place? What was happening for you in your business that made you like, okay, this is something that I need?
Yeah, I guess for me, I had reached a point where I was a little bit lost, I think. I was struggling financially. I didn't know why, but my business was not profitable and I couldn't see a way forward. I hated sales. It was first sentence I ever said to you was that I
Yeah.
hated sales. Um, and I guess I never looked at myself as a salesperson because I just have the icky, car salesperson
Yeah.
view, and I had never been taught how to do it. So I guess it was those things. What I soon found was that it was actually my mindset that was not in a great place, and that was causing me to be where I was.
And so tell us about what you loved most about Elevate.
I guess for me, it's been the change work in my mindset that has really allowed me to elevate in my business. It's changed me personally. It's changed me as a parent. It's changed me as a wife and as a business owner. So it's had such an impact. It's had such an impact on how I think about things now, how I process things, the way I respond and speak to my children. It's had such an impact on not just my business, but on my everyday life. I'm now very comfortable with sales and do quite well at it, if I don't say so myself. Um, I am very comfortable in sales conversations now and have a very good conversion rate. So I love having those conversations now because it means that I'm getting to impact another new person,
Mm.
another new business, more people, and it spreads out like a ripple. So I guess the connections I've made inside Elevate have really impacted that as well because it's such a great container to feel so open and comfortable and supported, not only by you, but by all the other people that are in there that come from so many different backgrounds and have so much experience to be able to share. So I just think that the combination of the training and the masterminding and the coaching, and like it's just the best combination to be able to grow and build your business to be something that you're earning over 10Ks every month.
Yeah, love it. And you've come so far with that. Honestly, it's been so phenomenal to watch your journey, like evolution throughout 2 rounds. It's been phenomenal. So I'd love for you to share, what do you think was one of the biggest mindset shifts that you had around money? Because I know there was lots of scarcity happening early on in the day, when we first started. And that was actually part of my favorite part of the transformation that I saw with you. There was like, I saw within you like the scarcity and how it was almost like a dark cloud over you. And it was almost like a resistance to be like, I don't even know if this is something that can change. And in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, cannot wait to see this change. This is going to be so good.
Oh, absolutely. Way back then, I was searching Seek every single week for just that right role, because I just didn't see how my business was going to go forward. You know, I was going to become one of those statistics that shuts down inside their 5 years. And I'm in a very, very different place now. I'm looking at hiring my, first. I've got contractors coming on board to support me in my business and support that growth, and plans to bring on employees and all of those kind of things. So I think the biggest change is moving from that scarcity to trusting in the process and being able to then start to look forward. I think I'd never looked at what my financials were going to be in 3 months' time. I never had services that allowed me to do that. And I think the change in having now services that are on retainers, that I know that people are invested in me and I'm invested in them, allows for that longevity, and it allows you to start trusting in the fact that the money's going to come back in. It's going to come back. And I still now go to the FPOS machine or when I pay with my card and say, thanks, money. Thanks for being there for me when I needed you, and those kind of things that have been real, just little changes, little daily changes that have made the way that I think and the way that I behave so, so different.
Love it. And how far ahead do you now look in your business?
Oh, at least 12 months. At least 12 months. I'm still working on stretching that. I love sitting down. I can't believe we're almost at the end of another quarter. Sitting down and looking at who I've got on board and how am I reviewing what's changed over the last quarter, and then looking at the next quarter and the next quarter after that, and planning out my socials and what my financials are going to be, and what amazing things I'm falling in love with and how I can bring those into my business. So yeah, it definitely lights me up to look forward now where it never did before.
Wow. Love it. Oh my God. So good. So what would you say to someone who's considering being part of the next round of Elevate?
I think the key part, you need to be all in. So you need to be committed to the process. You need to be committed to doing the work. You need to be committed to putting the time aside to do it, because that's where the greatest growth is going to come from. I think that be willing to be vulnerable. You need to be able to move forward. You need to be open and honest, not just with you, but with the people that are around you, because I think by sharing your own story, everybody else realizes that they can be vulnerable too. So I think that's really, really key. And I think make the time to do the things. Make the time to do the things, because if you don't make the time, we're all very, very busy people, and it flies by. Like, I can't believe that I've done 2 rounds now. I feel like I've blinked and it's over. But there's been so much growth and so much change in that time, purely because I scheduled time to do it every week.
Yeah, it was great to see the dedication with you as well, for sure. Because you're right. Like, even I was chatting to one of the other ladies the other day, and I was like, you can meditate like for 5 minutes in the morning and be like all zen, but then if the rest of the day you're buying into all the stress, scarcity, and doubt and fear in your business, then you're actually more sitting in the doubt and fear than you are in trust and believing that it's possible, right? So it is actually the little habits and little changes that you make throughout the day, and that dedication to making the changes that make all the difference, for sure.
Absolutely. It's the little things. It's like, if you feel yourself slumping, it's going and having a dance party in the lounge room to just vibe yourself up again and, ready to tackle the next thing. I think as business owners, we can especially working from home, you can be very singular and very silo. And I think that, one, the commitment's in yourself, but find that accountability partner. And we get that inside of Elevate, that you can reach out and have a conversation and build connections and all of those things that are really going to help you move forward, no matter whether you're dipping back into scarcity or whether you just need a pep up because it's been a rough week.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that community. It's just amazing. So tell us what type of results would people expect to when they join masterminds like this, like Elevate?
I think that there's obviously the financial one. For me, I have increased my income by more than $10,000 a month, which has made a huge impact on my life. I think that changing your mindset is going to really elevate how you do your business and how you move forward. I think they're the key things. Like, they're the key impacts. It's not just, it's going to change so many things, and you can tailor it exactly to what you're trying to achieve in your business. So the impact will be different for every single person, but I think it's how you approach it and how you come into it that's going to impact that progress.
And would you mind just sharing, you mentioned before that you feel like it changed you as a parent. What did you mean by that?
I found I was speaking the way my parents spoke to me when I was young, and we're in a very different place now. We're in a very different economy where life is very, very different to when I was a child. And I think that literally changing the way, when the kids ask for lunch money, for example, I'd say, oh no, we can't afford that this week. And it's very final. And I'm like, well, no, now we choose not to spend our money on that this week. There's food in the fridge and I've done the food shopping for this week. So let's think about that for next week. And, it's the way you have that conversation with the kids, that they were like, oh, okay, so you're not just saying no. I'm like, no, I'm considering that this week we need to spend our money on other things. We're choosing to, pay the electricity bill this week instead of, eating out. It's a choice rather than just living in the negative all the time and saying, no, we haven't got the money for that.
Yeah, love that.
And yeah, so I think that those kind of conversations have really changed, and it's changed their words because they were taking on my words as well. They'll now say, oh, I know, it's like a ripple, isn't it? It just like flows and flows out. And I think it's changed my stress levels as such, because I'm carrying the weight of our financial situation with my husband now rather than me holding all of that. So that allows the kids to have that conversation with dad as well as me. It's not all on me anymore.
Oh, that must feel so much better. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yes, it's such a relief. And having those open financial conversations, I think, has really changed the way we do things, the way we're making decisions. We're making huge changes in our personal life right now. And I think the stress level would have been very, very different if I'd have done this 12 months ago. I think that we are handling the situation much better as a family than we would have back then.
Oh, that's so good to hear. So good to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that with me and with the listeners. I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you so much for sharing all of your incredible wisdom around HR. If anyone is listening and they feel like they need further support with HR, book a discovery call with Amy. She honestly will support you and give you the direction and give you some suggestions on what you need to be focused on. So thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening, and if you found any value out of this episode, make sure you hit the follow button so you get access to the episodes as soon as they are live, and make sure you come hang out with me on Instagram. You can find me at ChristineCorcoran_coach. Have an incredible week.